Ladies and gentlemen, now we have with us Mrs. Britt Bohlin, the Governor of Jämtland in Sweden and the new Secretary General to the Secretariat of the Nordic Council. Mrs. Bohlin, hello. What do you think about the inclusion of the private sector with the NGOs? On the other hand, private sectors can do more to collaborate with NGOs.
I think so, and I think it's necessary that it happens, because if you really want to change something, change the world, I think there is a need for a lot of power, and you can't say that we can do this alone. I think we need to be very, very good to create commonship between NGOs and authorities, private sector, and so on.
In 2008, you have been appointed Governor of Jämtland County in Sweden.
Yes.
How was the nature of cooperation with NGOs in Jämtland during that period?
Oh, it was very good. We have a lot of work in common. For example, there was a hard time for farmers in Jämtland, and we cooperate a lot. From my experience, it was absolutely necessary to work together. My authority, the Länsstyrelsen in Jämtland, and the NGOs who was responsibility for farmership in Jämtland. And that was absolutely necessary for coming toward. So my experience was very good, and I think it's an absolute need for cooperation between authorities and NGOs. That's my experience.
Thank you. Let's stay in this period. You have been also deeply involved in the border issues between Norway and Sweden. So just a comment about that.
Yeah, because I always lived and worked very close to the border to Norway. There are strong connections between Sweden and Norway, you know. And we work very hard to make it a little bit easier. For example, to work in Norway and then live in Sweden or on the other hand. But still, there are a lot of problems. And that's one of the things that we now have to work with in the Nordic Council. And I must say that it's interesting to have private, personal experiences from that work. And it's also interesting to move from one Nordic country to another, as I now have been a Copenhagen. So there's much more to do, I will say, much more to do.
Actually, you are the new Secretary General of the Secretariat to the Nordic Council.
Yeah.
My question is, what kind of strategy you tend to develop in terms of current and future issues in the Nordic parliamentary agenda?
Oh, I think there's a lot of new questions coming up on the political agenda. For example, for last year, there was a quite new question coming up about defense and security questions, security policy, and that's a quite new question for the cooperation in Norden. So I think there's a lot of new questions that we have to deal with. I think the most important one, as far as I can see, is the climate change. That we need to work together to find solutions for the future.
Mrs. Bohlin, thank you for answering to our questions.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was a short meeting with Britt Bohlin, who shared with us her experience with NGOs today. So our forum is still going on and speakers are still giving their speeches. So let's see you later with other speakers.